All right, welcome to the Central Florida High School Scoreboard Show. I'm Dan LaForest. That is Baylin, the quarterback whisperer and the prince of prep. Baylin, week 4 was absolutely amazing. We had some incredible games.
Yes, we did, man. There was one big game in particular we're going to talk about. Obviously, didn't go the way that we even predicted. It could have gone either way, but it was lopsided. Some upsets here. We got a definitely different top 10, especially towards the back end of our rankings. But man, what a great week 4, and it's kind of setting up to now the meat of the season, which is where most of the top games start happening. All the cupcakes and non-district games are out of the way. Now it's when it counts. Is now week 4, week 5, week 6. Head into the final later part of the season. This is when it all matters, and I'm excited for this, especially this week. So Dan, let's get into some of these recaps.
No, I don't disagree, and there's a lot to go through. We're going to get started now. How about our private school top 5? Pine Ridge knocks off number 5 First Academy 28-22.
Close game here. This is actually pretty impressive for TFA, which is why they're still in our top 5 rankings. I mean, just because they lost to a pretty good program, and they actually were winning majority of this game. They did come back. They took the lead a little bit, and then Pine Ridge closed the deal, which they were supposed to. I definitely wouldn't have picked TFA to win this game, but it is pretty impressive that they stuck in there and had opportunities to actually pull this one out. So great job, TFA. Jack McKissick, that's another name. Again, a quarterback I mentioned earlier on this show. He played a really good game in this, and he's only a sophomore quarterback. So make sure you pay attention to them. I love the new style of offense. We're not used to seeing them score a lot of points or be competitive because of that, wing T or triple option offense they used to run. Now they're in a more high-tempo spread. So I'm excited about that. And, again, it's showing that they're in every football game they're in. So they're 3-1, their first loss, and I'm excited to see how they respond this week.
All right, well, for the first time, we're going to add a game ball, and that game ball for that game is going to go running back from Pine Ridge. Chris Body had 29 carries, 298 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Hey, let's move on to Masters Academy. Number 4 Masters Academy takes out Orangewood 55-0.
Spanking. Both quarterbacks here. I want to highlight both quarterbacks. I actually just got done training Nazir McMillan. He's special. He squeaked through 6 touchdowns the week before. Came in this game. He accounted for a couple touchdowns, as well as Jackson Stetcher. He's the 2027 quarterback. He had a couple touchdowns in this game. And Coach Cruz are going into the bye week with 2 or actually 3 straight wins. I'm excited for this program and where they're headed. And like I told you guys earlier in the pregame and before the season even started, when this team starts rolling offensively, look for games like this where it's completely lopsided and they're just continuously getting better each and every week. The quarterback play is getting better. Coach Kruzik is a quarterback himself, so he knows how to coach that position at a high level. And again, Coach Kruzik, his dad is the OC, and he loves to score points. So watch this team late in the season as they get into the meat of their schedule to keep putting on performances like this, Dan.
And I gave a game ball to the entire Masters Academy team. They threw the ball to everybody. I felt like everybody got involved, so there wasn't one player that really stood out there. How about number 2 versus number 3? OCP knocks off Foundation 32-14.
Wow. Statement made. OCP. They kind of clowned everybody on our show and in the committee through a whiteboard after the game, and we both saw that on Twitter. It was awesome. Great job for them. I definitely did not pick that to happen. I definitely picked Foundation to win in this football game, and they proved me wrong, and they proved a lot of people wrong, and they did it in blowout fashion. I mean, 20 points, 19 point whatever. I mean, that's pretty dominating. And I know Foundation took a late 14-7 lead in the third quarter, but it was all Warriors after that point. And Cameron Curzon, I can't speak highly enough about him. Boone transfer quarterback, junior. He is managing the game well, not turning the ball over, continuously leading on scoring drives. And if you saw that fourth quarter this past week against Foundation, OCP pretty much scored on every drive and defensively stopped Foundation. So that's why they had the lopsided 32-14 win. But they are who they really say they are, and they're continuously winning. And like I said, Dan, they're putting teams away. So it's not like they're in battles. They're not in dogfights. They're in complete dominating wins. So look to see our new rankings this week. I'm sure if you guys are paying attention to the show, you see where they ended up. But I'm excited about this football team where they're headed, Dan.
Yeah, I tell you what, and they didn't have one 100-yard rusher. They had two of them, and they have to be brothers. Avery Johnson, the junior, had 19 carries, 110 yards, 2 touchdowns. And his little brother, Kevin, sophomore, had 12 carries for 137. How about the number 1 team, Holy Trinity, getting knocked off by Merritt Island, 33-0?
Merritt Island is the real deal. Holy Trinity, that's a team, obviously in our private school rankings, have been at number 1 for a while. If you watch their offense, they're very explosive under Brogan McNabb, quarterback, 2026 kid, another one I trained. He's elite talent. He's already accounted for over 12 touchdowns this season in 3 games, now his 4th game. But, man, Merritt Island completely shut them down. They couldn't do anything. Obviously, there was former head coaches involved. There was a little rivalry there between public and private school. Merritt Island definitely got the better of that, and again, now they cracked our top 10 rankings. If you guys are following the show, there's a reason for it. They're setting up for a big matchup this week and a big top 10 team matchup or former top 10 team matchup with Heritage. But, man, I'll tell you what, Merritt Island, that is the sleeper that they kind of popped up out of nowhere, and they made a statement this week. So they got momentum going into this week in week 4 or week 5. But, man, Dan, I'll tell you what, 33-0, that's pretty impressive with a team that was averaging over 35 points a game in Holy Trinity.
And game ball goes to running back for the Merritt Island Mustangs, Chris Kelly, 16 carries, 121 yards, and 2 touchdowns. All right, Baylin, let's now go to our public schools. Number 10, we told everybody this was going to be a big game. Number 10, Leesburg, falls to Vanguard, 42-29.
Yeah, Vanguard, this was pretty impressive for Leesburg. And, yes, the score looks a lot closer than it really was. I trained their quarterback on Saturday for Vanguard, and he let me know a little bit what happened in the game. And, Vanguard jumped out really early. It was close in the beginning, and then they jumped out to, I believe, a 21-7 or 28-7 lead. Leesburg scored a couple times right before halftime and then got it within 28-22. And then Vanguard scored another 2 touchdowns in the 4th quarter, and then Leesburg got a final touchdown to keep it respectable. But I don't care what this score looks like. The fact that Leesburg is scoring 28 points against a powerhouse, it completely shows you the turnaround for this program. They're heading in the right direction. This was a terrible football team a year ago. And with the new head coach and Coach Moffitt, they have completely changed the culture of this program. I love where they're headed. If anything, this gives them confidence moving forward. They're never going to see Vanguard again in the playoffs or down the road, but this is only helping them right now with what just happened. So this is respectable. They're only going to get more credit with this loss, even though this is a loss. If they would have won this game, this would have blown out Lee County. This whole city would have been like, wow, Leesburg is the real deal. But I do believe this is still a small victory, even though, Coach Moffitt or Coach Mitchell or any of those guys wouldn't take moral victories. But I love the fact that they're competitive in these football games with these big-time programs. It just shows you that Leesburg is not the team that we thought of last year when they went 1-9. Now they're really turning it around. And, yes, they were our top 10 team. They lost, which bumped them out. But look for them to really still make statements and move themselves back into our rankings later on and continue to prove themselves, Dan.
No doubt about it. Game ball goes to Evan James. The wide receiver had 5 receptions, 126 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Number 9, Heritage, goes to Oviedo, and the Lions take care of business 42-35.
Yeah, Dan, I got a lot of updates through you, which I want you to elaborate a little bit more on this game because you were right there on the sidelines for this. Obviously, Jackson Latour accounted for pretty much all their touchdowns, scored the game winner on a rushing touchdown. Oviedo, they made a statement here. I know they made a comment on Twitter. We all saw that. They said, well, if you guys knew who we really were, this wasn't an upset. Well, according to a lot of people that I talked to on the sidelines, Heritage looked like the better football team. They made a lot of mistakes. They were doing things, unconventional. They were not disciplined, and which resulted in this loss. A couple turnovers late resulted in this Oviedo win. They capitalized it, and that was great. That's why they came away with the 7-point victory. But Heritage is still a real good football team, and yes, I would still consider this an upset. So, Dan, what is your take on this game? You were right there, and you saw it live in person.
I've got one word. It's called resilience. Oviedo kept plugging, and finally, it was a great defensive stock by that defense that it ended up with them getting the ball back with 36 seconds and put them in a position for Jackson. And Jackson Latour controlled that game. Oviedo did not have a big running presence that game. I thought Jackson looked extremely poised and got the ball to the right people at the right time. And you got to give him a lot of credit. That's why he's going to get the game ball. 4 touchdown passes, 1 rushing touchdown for the win. All right, let's go on to number 8. Winter Park takes care of business. They take care of Orlando University 44-0.
The only name I want to talk about here is Aaron Williams, the quarterback for Winter Park. He was our Dude of the Week last week, Touchdown TD Club member, Player of the Week, and he's going to get to enjoy that experience next Monday night in the Touchdown Club. But, I mean, he rolled. He kind of, I believe, for 4 touchdowns, 2 passing, 2 rushing, or maybe even more. I don't know. But University had no chance in this football game. Winter Park closed it out. They continue to roll, Dan. This is one of those teams where no one really talked about them in the beginning of the season. Thank goodness for all these Timber Creek transfers, especially the quarterback. Now Winter Park put themselves right back to where they are every year in title contention, and we're talking about them as one of our ranked teams. So great job to what they're doing over there, especially offensively. Defensively, another shutout. Dan, I mean, what are your thoughts on this? I just think that Winter Park they're just getting better and better every week.
No, I don't disagree. And Winter Park had a lot of question marks, right? A lot of young players coming in. They did have some transfers in. You never know how a transfer is going to fit in. But Coach Shiflett's been around the block many times. Kit Hill, their offense coordinator. Again, I can't wait to see him in person. But, you're right. Aaron A.J. Williams, 127 yards and 3 touchdowns, gets that game ball. Number 6, Apopka had a bye. They got their upcoming game with Edgewater. Number 5, Seminole, first district win, takes care of Evans, 35-14.
Everybody's on the Evans train until the last 2 weeks. They got popped last week, then they got popped again this week. Not saying Evans is not turning it around. I love what they're doing, but this is almost reality, a reality check. Seminole is still proving dominance in that district over this team. Evans is only going to get better. They have to prove themselves in this district. When you're talking about teams like Seminole, Apopka, Lake Mary, now, Evans, you're going to have to rise to the occasion if you want to be considered one of the top teams. You were a bubble team in a lot of different rankings in Central Florida. And the last 2 weeks, yeah, granted, their quarterback got knocked out last week. I don't know if Chris played this game, but regardless, you got to compete in these games if you really want the respect or the turnaround talk that we talk about. And Seminole put it to sleep, and great job, Seminole. This is a solid win. They start off 1-0 in their district. They got big games coming up. A couple weeks, they got Apopka back-to-back with Lake Mary. So, this is a good momentum swift going into, the next couple weeks for Seminole. But, again, Evans, this was more about Evans and where they were and how they stood up to a powerhouse like Seminole, and Seminole put them away. So, Seminole's the real deal.
And a name we haven't heard a whole lot about. How about the game ball going to Jack Gable, the linebacker for Seminole, with 14 tackles? All right. Battle of the Lakes. Number 4, Lake Mary hosts Lake Brantley. Lake Mary takes care of that 35-2.
Yeah, this is the game that I watched, and it was dominating from start to finish. Lake Brantley had no chance in this football game. I mean, if you looked at this football game on YouTube right now, you can go back and watch it. The offense for Lake Mary, I've never seen nothing like this in high school. And I'm watching it, and I'm critiquing. Obviously, I train Noah, so I'm very detailed when I go back and watch this film. I'm telling you, the offense that Coach Donnelly has going on, and even Coach Henshaw, who's the receiver coach there, I've never seen a team so disciplined where they're running their routes exactly the same way every time. No one's playing selfish football. Guys are wide open every single play. They're hitting big play after big play after big play. I'm going to be shocked. And this was a team that battled with Oviedo. They put up 47 points on Oviedo. Granted, they gave up 60. But, man, I'll tell you what, Lake Mary offensively is rolling. And then you flip to the defensive side, clearly only holding a triple option team to 2 points. Again, this team scored 47 on Oviedo. I would consider Oviedo defensively pretty good. And they only allowed 2 points on a safety against this football team. This is nuts. The way that Lake Mary is trending right now, and again, everybody's going to say I'm biased because I train Noah. No, I'm not biased. I'm realistic, right? The way they're playing football right now, I cannot wait specifically for the matchup against Apopka, only because I believe Apopka has the best defense in the area without a shadow of a doubt. I cannot wait to see an offense like this go against a defense like this. And they're in the same district, so they got to win these games. So I don't want to look too far ahead. I want to talk about this game specifically, but Noah, again, a 5-touchdown performance. All 5 touchdowns going to Tyson Henshaw, or Carson Henshaw.
Henshaw, yeah.
And Logan Cook. Logan Cook finally now in the offensive mix again. We haven't even talked about Caden Harshberger. Wait till he gets in the mix. I mean, it's unbelievable what this team is doing right now offensively with what they have. I'm so excited about Lake Mary and Lake Brantley. Again, they moved the ball several times, had key turnovers, but just couldn't get it in the end zone. Lake Mary continues to rise the stock, in my opinion.
All right, Noah Grubbs gets the game ball, 348 yards and 5 touchdowns. All right, big game. It is every year. Jones, number 7, loses to number 3 Edgewater, 35-14, Baylin.
Yeah, so I didn't make a prediction this game. I've made wise decisions in not predicting this year because this is the game that I feel like I just get heat from in both sides. If I didn't pick against Jones, I'd hear about it because Coach Will is my mentor. Then if I don't pick Edgewater, they win. The whole entire community just goes after me on Twitter and Instagram and all that. So I wanted to just enjoy this matchup that everyone looks forward to every year. And I'll tell you what, I had a conversation with Michael Clayton's dad. If you don't know Mike Clayton, he's the quarterback at Edgewater, a kid that I trained, a kid that I worked with, a kid that I actually encouraged to go to Edgewater. He's there now. He's making a name for himself. He's the real deal, 2026 kid. I told his dad before the game, I believe Edgewater's winning this football game. And I'm glad it happened because he can attest to this. I did predict that. I didn't make it on the show. Edgewater's the real deal. If you are believers now, what they did with Jones, granted, Jones did drop about 2 or 3 touchdowns. We're talking wide open touchdowns. They completely dropped. Their best receiver, Vernell Brown, dropped them. Darion didn't play to the potential that he has. Trevor Jackson comes in, tries to lead a comeback, throws 2 interceptions, also throws a touchdown in this game. But Edgewater is the real deal. I don't care what anybody has to say about this. If you're not a believer now, they have an argument to be one of the top teams, if not number 1 in our complete top 10 rankings. Obviously, Cocoa with what they've done recently, and Mainland continue to win. Edgewater's right up there. So they made a statement in this football game. They have to see each other again in the playoffs if they meet each other in round 2. So I would love to see how Jones responds this week against West Orange. That's what I'm really looking forward to. And I would hate to play the Tigers right now, especially after this loss. And Edgewater continue to take care of business, and I believe they're going to go undefeated. And they got a big matchup this week with Apopka.
No doubt about it. And we talked about the interceptions. Kai Bates, 5 tackles, 2 interceptions. The LSU commit had a great game. All right, Cocoa, our number 2 team, had a bye. They've got O'Galley coming up this week. And how about Mainland? Once again, they are rolling. They shut out Jacksonville Range 26-0. Dennis Murray didn't get his stats, but I know he had a couple rushing and a couple throwing.
Yeah, Mainland, this game, there's really nothing to talk about here because it wasn't exciting if you were part of the Range program. I predicted Mainland to win. I thought it was going to be closer. Me and you talked about this, Dan, that I wanted to see where Mainland was in a game like this, especially responding after a comeback win against Bartram Trail, and they took care of business. It wasn't even close from start to finish. There you see the result, 26-0. They just keep rolling, which is why they will not move for our rankings. And again, there's a lot of debate on who should be number 1, but Mainland, they continue to roll, Dan.
I tell you what, we're going to take a quick break. We got a great interview with Oviedo head coach Greg Odierno, and when we come back, we got Andy Villamarzo from SB Live. You're watching the Central Florida Scoreboard Show, and we'll be back right after this.
Here with Oviedo head coach Greg Odierno. Greg, 42-35. It's always good to come home and get that win, but talk about your team. This was a shootout. Jackson Latour had 4 touchdowns tonight, plus took in the game winner on the ground on a 1-yard dive. Let's talk about the last couple weeks. Let's talk about preparing your team for the rest of the season. We're almost at the midway point. What was your message to your team?
So, when we look at our schedule, when we made this schedule, we scheduled the first 5 teams again that were playoff teams, and we played 3 top 100 teams in the state so far. Didn't fare well in week 2 and week 3. We were winning at half. Second half, it got away from us. And I told us we got to put 4 quarters of good football together, and that's what we came out and did. All 3 phases of the game, we had a kickoff return for a touchdown. Defense played awesome at the end to get a crucial stop, and anytime you can put up 35 against a quality team like that, your offense is doing well.
No doubt about it, and let's talk about that defense. Critical turnover right there with 33 seconds left in the game. Had to really give the sideline a lot of momentum looking at that game-winning drive.
Absolutely. It was huge for us. We do turnover circuit 3 times a week, and, second man in strip, and that's what we did. We got a punch on the ball, got on the 4-yard line, and gave us the ball in a great situation to win the game.
Let's talk about Jackson Latour. Very poised tonight. Looked really comfortable operating your offense. 4 touchdown passes, and also the game-winning 1-yard plunge. Talk about his maturity and how far he's come here in the last 12 months.
I don't think there's a quarterback who's come farther in the last 12 months than Jackson Latour. I'm so proud of him. He's as committed as a football player as I've ever been around. From quarterback school in January to all the throwing sessions, he lives and breathes football. He's mastered the offense. He knows the ins and outs, and it's like having a second coach out there. The dialogue we have in between series, I've never had that with a quarterback at this level, and so I'm just so proud of him, and he's deserving of everything he's earning right now.
All right, Coach, congratulations. Good luck against Timber Creek next week.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, welcome back to the Central Florida High School Scoreboard Show. I'm Dan LaForest. That's Baylin Trujillo. And welcome from SBLive, Andy Villamarzo. Andy, welcome to the show.
Dan, thank you for having me, and Baylin as well. Thank you.
You know, we've had a lot of activity. I know you cover a lot of programs across the state. We've had a lot of activity here in Central Florida. What's your first impression of some of the teams that we've gone over so far here in the first part of the show?
Well, just hearing out Baylin and a lot of the teams he was touching on. I mean, obviously, Mainland, that was a team I got to see against Bartram Trail, and they beat them 28-24. Definitely a lot different of a version of the team I saw a year ago, or less than a year ago, when they played in the Class 3S state championship game against Lake Wales. Obviously, that offense was very high-powered. Not that they lose a lot when you're talking about offensively being able to put up some points. I mean, I know in talking to you, week 1, they put up 43 against DeLand. That night, they scored 28 against Bartram Trail. Just definitely a different feel to the team, that they're going to be more of a ground-oriented team. They're going to rely on more kind of athleticism at that quarterback position, so kind of more playmaking. Defensively, they didn't lose a lot. So to me, Mainland kind of just seems on pace to be making another run in 3S, and definitely wouldn't be surprised if they end up back in the state championship game again. I haven't gotten to see Lake Mary. I did get to see him that one time last year at Sanford Seminole when they won that playoff game. From what I see so far, I mean, Lake Mary definitely has been impressive. I think kind of the tail to their story is going to be kind of this back end of the schedule, because they got a lot of tough opponents down the stretch. I was just kind of looking at it like they're definitely going to have to be bringing it every week on that back end. So definitely interested to see what they do. You guys mentioned Leesburg, the kind of job Stephen Moffitt has done over there. They're 3-1 at this point. They did just lose the Vanguard, but I've seen them, very talented team all the way around. I only lost by a couple touchdowns to the Knights, and you got to like what Moffitt has done over at Leesburg. I liken his impact over there, kind of like Deion Sanders. Like he's gone over there and kind of brought that swag, kind of brought that feel of, kind of Leesburg pride. A lot of graphics out there, nice photos, just kind of makes you think a lot differently about the program from last year's 1-win team. So definitely exciting things going on there. And taking a look at their schedule, the rest of the way, they could win the last 6 games. They could literally be a 9-1 team. And talking, if they would have beat Vanguard, be talking about an undefeated Leesburg team. So exciting things out of Lake County there. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about, I know Jones has played a lot of tough opponents through the first 4 weeks. Our Lady Good Counsel, they went up there to Maryland, lost just recently now. They lost to Edgewater 35-14. Definitely tough slate. And I know everyone was excited about them out of the preseason when they just shellacked Jesuit. But, I mean, 1-3 start, not exactly what you expect from the Fighting Tigers. But I'd say hold your breath, Tigers fans. It's those last 6 games, all very winnable for Jones. So could see this team 7-3, easily 7-3. To me, at worst, 6-4. But that, to me, definitely stands out that they're 1-3 to start. And I don't think anybody would expect them to have that kind of start. So Edgewater, I feel like just kind of moseying along. You lose Baxter. He's at Texas, but got Michael Clayton leading that offense and doing it on defense. I mean, really, they're able to shut down opponents. And this week, you got a Popka. And what better game to say it's going to be kind of an all defensive effort. I mean, you got 2 really good defenses. Popka's won games by, I think, a total of like 13 points. So, not expecting a lot of points when those two teams meet. And speaking of Apopka, which Jeff Rolson, and you got first-year defensive coordinator Marcus Neeson, who's actually someone I went to high school with. I mean, it's all about defense over with the Blue Darters. They are able to just 2-0 at the beginning of the season against a Dan was, I mean, I know a lot of people were talking about all kinds of scores. I know Lake Mary had a wild one at the beginning, but 2-0, that stands out like a sore thumb. I mean, I don't think you could ever forget that score. And just they've established themselves over the years as one of the top defensive clubs. And I think more so than ever, it seems like they're going to have to rely on that defensive unit. But to me, those are kind of the top stories I've seen when we're talking about kind of the Central Florida region and just what has stood out on a state level. I mean, those teams and just kind of where they're heading, that's kind of what I've seen.
Baylin?
Yeah, so speaking of, teams and stuff, I would love to know your intake. What about Cocoa? The statement that they've made, obviously, I didn't expect them to be at this position. They technically are 3-0. I'm going to call it what it is. You talk about Jones, you talk about Venice, you talk about St. Thomas Aquinas, top 15 team in the country. Cocoa is making a name for itself under a freshman quarterback who's only had 3 starts in his whole entire career, and those are the 3 starts that he was against, is those Jones and the Venice and St. Thomas Aquinas. And we're talking 5 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns. He had the 1 touchdown performance against Jones, but at the end of the day, he's just getting better and better every single week. So I would love to know your intake on what you think Cocoa is, where you think they should be ranked, not just even in our rankings, but just where you see them in the state of Florida and based off what you've read and what you're putting together. And, I would love to know your take on Cocoa High School.
Well, my take on Cocoa is a team that I think can go back and win the Class 2 state championship once again. Obviously, Florida State High and some other schools, Bishop Verot, would like to have something to say in that. But the Tigers right now are playing at an elite level. I do a Power 25 rankings for SBLive for the state of Florida every week, and Cocoa's in that top 10. They did have that, controversial loss to St. Thomas Aquinas, and obviously things go the way they should have gone. I mean, they're 3-0. Thing that stands out to me about the Tigers really was just the way they were able to compete with Aquinas, and just this time last year, that was a game that was multiple scores separation. This time around, and from seeing Aquinas at the Broward County Elite Showcase, I felt like going into that game that Cocoa would have a shot to win. And I think that was something when I would talk to other fellow colleagues, that was like a crazy notion. They were like, no way, Cocoa doesn't go in there and beat St. Thomas Aquinas. And I'm like, well, I didn't say they would, but they can. They can, because I do attribute that Aquinas is not Aquinas from last year. That is my opinion. And I think Cocoa is better than they could be better than last year's team. And you combine that, and you got a team that, should be 3-0 if it's not for some just mechanical issues with the referees not making the right calls. So Cocoa, very impressed. Brady Hart obviously has played out of his mind, and he's playing like he's the best quarterback in Florida right now. I mean, and he's done it against 3 quality opponents. It's not like Cocoa's played a couple teams that are on the lower end and then one good team in Aquinas. No, Venice, you play Aquinas. They've really just he's gone out in these games and just impressed, and I expect him to kind of rival those numbers that Blake Boda had of a year ago. And I think, and he was our MVP from last year, our overall MVP, because I felt like he meant the most to Cocoa when it came to leading them to the state championship. If Brady can do that for Cocoa this year, he's going to make a very strong case to be the most valuable player in the state of Florida once again, and it'd be another quarterback for Cocoa.
Andy, one last question. When I used to coach, I used to say you don't know who you are till week 4. Well, guess where we are, right? Yep. We just got through a week 4. If you were a betting man, what are the teams out of Central Florida you are betting you'll see in the state championship game here in December?
If I'm a betting man, which I'm not, but if I was, if I was, I'd say book it. Coco's back in the state championship game, and you know what? I guess this would be me if I was at the Hard Rock saying put all my chips in. Coco wins it all. They're going to win the state championship. So Class 2S, yep, I'm saying it now. And to me, predictions are made to be proven wrong, but I feel like I don't think Coco's going to be proven wrong this season. The way they're playing, it's an elite level. Coco wins the Class 2S state championship. I believe Edgewater gets there, but they end up falling. I don't know to who. I don't know what it is.
They would have to play probably Homestead or St. Thomas Aquinas.
Yeah, I just feel like I don't know what it is. Something ends up happening. I'm not Nostradamus. I'm just saying they'll get there. They don't win it. Apopka doesn't get back. I just don't think they have enough offense. Defense is elite. I think they play at an elite level. But to me, I mean, the most they've scored this year is, I believe, 18 points. And I just think against elite competition, when you get into those later rounds, you got to be able to score touchdowns. You can't win games 2-0. I know they did to start the season, but that's not feasible through 5-6 rounds of the playoffs. You got to be able to score some touchdowns. I know Ty Davidson's a talent. I noticed that last year down in Fort Lauderdale at DRV Pink, but I don't know. Something's got to give. And I know for the Blue Darters, it's that midway point in the second half of the season where they kind of start to magically appear offensively and they start to do things that they didn't do the first few games. But I'm going to say they don't. I think this time around they just kind of fizzles out, and not because of the defense. It seems like the defense is going to be their backbone, but the offense is not producing.
So, Andy, with that being said, because I will tell you guys this, Tyson has been injured. He was injured last week, and he's probably, off the record, not going to be playing this week against Edgewater for bigger reasons because of district play. So we're going to go to that question. Because I believe, and I don't know if you agree to this, one of these three teams is going to the state championship, and you just eliminated one of them. But out of this district, you have Lake Mary, Seminole, and Apopka. Of those three teams, who makes out of that district? I'd love to know your opinion. That way, it gives a better understanding, because I think one of those three will go to the state title game.
I'm going to say Lake Mary. I feel like Sanford Seminole, I mean, I like what Coach Calhoun's doing over there. Obviously, taking over as a former alum and doing the job he's done. I mean, only loss is to Treasure Coast, which is not a team that you're shaking your head like, wow, what a loss. I mean, no, that's a quality team, one of the hottest teams in Florida right now. But I would say that Lake Mary, just seeing them last year, and you got to believe that win in the playoffs over Sanford Seminole gave them the confidence to know they can go into their house. And then if Sanford Seminole's coming to them, they can beat them. And albeit they didn't have Luke Rucker last year, I don't think that matters. I think it's just a psyche. It's a mind thing. You know you can beat somebody. You feel like you can do it, and you can do it again. And I think Lake Mary, with Noah as a freshman last year, they were able to beat him. He's 1 year better. He's obviously playing at a really high level now. I think they can do it again and get out of that. I know you guys have been calling it the district of death, which I agree with. It's an incredibly tough district. And I think Lake Mary gets out of it. And if that's where, if you're going with that, I wouldn't be surprised to see Lake Mary play in the state championship. I do see that game against Mandarin here in a couple weeks. And to me, that's a very interesting matchup when you talk about Class 4M. So I think
absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's a game.
Great point.
Yeah, I really think that game right there, you could look at that as kind of an early indicator of who will be there at the end in terms of Northeast and Central Florida. Whoever wins that, they're going to have that edge, kind of like how Lake Mary, I think, has over Sanford Seminole. I think those two teams, whoever wins that one, you're going to be looking at saying, hey, why not them? Why can't they?
Well, not only that, Andy, everybody's talking about Apopka's defense. How about Mainland's defense? Lake Mary's at Mainland the last game of the season.
Yeah, that's going to be – I mean, you got a battle of a team that – and I'm looking at their defense, and obviously LJ McCray looks like a power forward out there, and he'll chase down any quarterback. But their team all around, I just saw so many athletes, and I'm like, man, no matter who they play, and whether I think it's kind of a, I don't know, fluid way of playing football because offensively, I think they just have a lot of pieces, and no matter who they get it to, they find a way to get yards, first downs, touchdowns, and it's not really making a whole ton of sense to me how it's happening, but it's happening. And then defensively, they're holding teams down. Now, against Bartram Trail, they didn't have their starting quarterback, so that's where I'm kind of like, I'd like to see that game, with all their, each team having their dudes, but I mean, Mainland lost to them last year. They were able to go to their place, win the game against their backup. And, I mean, I thought they impressed me. I mean, defensively, I think they can play. With seeing all the teams I've seen throughout the state, I think they can play really with anybody just with that defense. It's like their offense just has to do enough. They got to just get like 3 or 4 touchdowns. Defense is like, hey, we got you. We got the rest.
Well, I tell you what, that is Andy Villamarzo from SBLive. Andy, thanks for joining us. We're going to take a quick water break. When we come back, we're going to have our Week 4 Dudes of the Week. You're watching the Central Florida Scoreboard Show, and we'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Central Florida High School Scoreboard Show, and let's talk about our dudes of the week. Baylin, Chris Bodie, the running back from Pine Ridge. 26 carries, 298 yards, and 3 touchdowns against First Academy. I think we're getting drowned out by the music here. Baylin, you're muted, buddy. You're muted.
Sorry, I got so excited because of all that music that was playing. I was in rhythm, just like this running back all night, which is why he's our offensive dude of the week, Chris Booty from Pine Ridge. Without him, TFA pulls off this upset. So this kid's elite. They're undefeated, and they got a big matchup this week, Dan. So we're going to see if he's going to put up another performance like he did with 3 touchdowns. But great job, got the win, and now they're moving on.
No, I absolutely agree. And let's talk about our defensive dude of the week. And that goes to Mr. Kai Bates, the senior DB from Edgewater. The LSU commit, 5 tackles, 2 big interceptions against Jones.
This kid is the real deal, guys. He is entertaining as it gets. You want to see what a Division I super athlete looks like? He should be a 5-star in my opinion if he's not already. This kid is all as advertised. He makes it look very easy. One of his interceptions, he literally tipped to himself. Like, the kid is that freakish. And he just tipped it to himself, got the pick, and then he got a pick 6 later on that was negated by a penalty. This kid on the biggest stage always shows up, which is why he's our defensive dude of the week.
All right, now let's get to our special teams dude of the week. And that is going to go to Oviedo's Alejandro Belo, 80-yard kickoff return against Heritage. And this kind of set the stage for the Lions for the rest of the night.
Once you get a kickoff return for a touchdown or a punt return, it completely shifts momentum in any football game you play in. That's still 33% of every game is special teams. This kid, when he returned this, it completely shifted the entire momentum. You even said it, Dan. You were there to see it live in person. I mean, once he made that happen, it was like Oviedo had life, had momentum, and they just continued to roll with it, which is what led to their 7-point victory. You take this kickoff return back in the game, they tie and go to overtime. So this was the difference in this football game, and look at this. I mean, just a special opening. It's like the Red Sea just parted for him, and he hit it like a crease and was out of there. See you later. Give me 6 for reservations.
No doubt about it. And congratulations to our dudes of the week. Hey, listen, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have the new top 10, and we're going to talk about, we're going to have Baylin's predictions on the biggest games coming up this week. You're watching the Central Florida High School Scoreboard Show. We'll be back right after this. right, welcome back to the Central Florida High School Scoreboard Show. I'm Dan LaForest. That's Baylin Trujillo. Now, Baylin, we got a new top 10, and let's go through this right away. And it starts off with number 10, OC University at 4-0.
They are 4-0. They're rolling. If you look at their schedule, Dan, they've got some big hitters coming up, and they proved themselves, in my opinion, and they're right there at our top 10, taking the spot of Leesburg last week. So look for University of Orange City to continue to roll, and when they play bigger matchups coming in their district play, then we're going to find out really who they are.
All right, number 7 stays at, number 8. Got a new number 8. Olympia slides in at 3-1.
Yes, before Olympia, Island comes in, and we talked about them a little earlier. So they are now in our top 10 as well, unbeaten. They got a big game this week versus previous number 9 Heritage. So they're coming off that upset loss to Oviedo. Let's see how Merritt Island comes this week with a big win over Holy Trinity. But yes, number 8 is Olympia. They got a big win over Ocoee. I even said it last week. That was our bonus game of the week. A lot of fans went to that game, actually, and everybody wanted to see where Ocoee was and where Olympia was. Olympia seems to be treading upwards offensively. Ocoee, I believe, has one of the best defenses in the entire area, and they got pummeled by 20. And that was also after, unfortunately, a severe injury took place in this football game. Prayers to that player. I know he's doing doing well, but they had to cut the game short. But Olympia wins by 20+ in that football game, and that put them right at our number 8 spot, Dan.
Yep, number 7, Winter Park, sustains at 3-0.
Yes, and Apopka comes in at number 6, followed by Seminole and Lake Mary at number 4, Dan.
And number 3, Edgewater. Number 2, Cocoa at 2-1, and the number 1 team still is Daytona Beach Mainland at 4-0.
Yes, and again, one of those 3 teams, you can put them in a raffle and just pick them out of their hat. All those 3 teams deserve to be number 1. Obviously, both 2 teams in our top 3 have beaten Jones, which was our preseason ranked number 1 team, which was also Orlando Sentinel's number 1 team, which was also Central Florida's ranked number 1 team. So that's a pretty good win on both resumes. But what stands out to me, what separates all these teams, obviously Mainland's unbeaten, and so is Edgewater. But Cocoa, with the I would say again asterisk win over St. Thomas Aquinas, it's going to be hard to really say Edgewater's better than Cocoa or even Mainland, who hasn't lost. So it's very interesting. But again, all 3 teams deserve to be number 1. And guess what, Dan? A lot of these teams have to play each other now. It's no.
No, he's absolutely right. Looks like we lost Baylin due to some connectivity. He'll bounce back on here in a second. But absolutely. Now you got the private schools. Bishop Moore comes back in at number 5. Even though they're 1-3, Bishop Moore right now looks like, they've had a tough schedule. Number 4, even though they had a loss, First Academy sitting at number 4. Masters Academy sitting at number 2. Holy Trinity falls from 1 to 2 at 3-1, and OCP moves up 2 spots to number 1. And we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, hopefully we got Baylin back, and we are going to get right into Baylin's predictions. You're watching Central Florida High School Scoreboard Show. We'll be back right after this. All right, welcome back. Now, Baylin, we're going to get right into the predictions, and we're going to set it up. We got a game here on Thursday night. Number 10, University OC, is going to host, and they're 4-0, host Palm Coast, now 2-1.
Yeah, our fan polls have University of Orange City winning this football game. I am completely in agreement with this. I don't think Flagler Palm Coast has much of a chance in this football game. University of Orange City is only giving up less than 2 touchdowns a game, and they're also scoring about 3 or 4 every single game on average. So take the Titans in this one. I don't think it's close. Yes, the records are pretty good, almost even. Flagler Palm Coast have had a couple big wins. I know they dropped their first game, but I'll tell you what, University of Orange City is a real deal, which is why they're in our top 10, and they win this football game Thursday night.
And got to give a lot of credit to Palm Coast. They came off that big win over Matanzas in that Potato Bowl last week. So we're going to see what they've got. But again, 75% of the fan poll has the Titans winning that game. All right, number 9, the newly minted number 9 team, Merritt Island, takes on Heritage out of Palm Bay. 4-0 versus 3-1. Heritage, kind of upset they dropped out of our top 10, but the fan poll has them at 70%, Baylin.
Yeah, Merritt Island, 70% chooses them to win. I'm also going with the fans here. I want to see, honestly, how Heritage responds after a game in which they probably believe they should have won. Even you said it, Dan, they were the better football team. A lot of people have said that also. They were very impressive, and Oviedo capitalized, which is great. That's why they won the football game. But Merritt Island, they seem to be rolling. And, based on what they did last week against a pretty similar style of quarterback play between Brogan McNabb and Trenta over there at Heritage, I say that Merritt Island shuts them down defensively, and I think they score enough to win this football game, and I believe Merritt Island's a real deal. So I'm going to take Merritt Island in this football game, Dan.
All right, let's move on. How about number 4, Lake Mary, Battle of the Unbeatens, travel to Spruce Creek. Spruce Creek's 4-0, but the fan poll, 88% believe Lake Mary is going to win that.
Yes, and I don't think there's a question here on who everybody believes other than the 12%, which is probably attending Spruce Creek High School or on staff. I am impressed with Spruce Creek being 4-0. But if you look at their max prep schedule, who have they really beaten? Every single game they played in, they pretty much dominated, and it's against teams under 500, all of them. Lake Mary, on the other hand, you would kind of argue the same thing, right? But I think against defenses like Dr. Phillips, where they put up 76, Lake Brantley, who is also pretty good historically in controlling the clock, they put up 35 in a rolling clock situation. I believe Lake Mary is more well-tested. Their offense is more explosive, and it's going to be really hard to keep up with them, in my opinion, with Spruce Creek. So I'm going to take Lake Mary in a 20-plus blowout win over here, but it's still very impressive that Spruce Creek is unbeaten going into this matchup, a team that's really struggled last year, so they've completely turned it around. But I don't think they stand a chance against Lake Mary, who's continuously rolling and averaging over 35 points a game. So take Lake Mary in a blowout for me.
I'll tell you what, Lake Mary's defense has played very well, but Spruce Creek has a lot of team speed, and it's going to be very interesting to see how they're able to actually move the ball against that Lake Mary defense. All right, let's take a look at another big game. Horizon just lost to Poinciana on Monday night on a makeup game, but they traveled to New Smyrna Beach to take on the Cudas, who are 3-0.
Yeah, there's a good storyline here. Obviously, Horizon, one of the biggest turnarounds I've ever seen. A new program. They won football games from the jump. It wasn't like they had to rebuild or try to find themselves and their identity. They started winning games. I mean, last year 7-3. This year already started off 3-1. Like, they're just rolling. Now, obviously, right now their head coach is the winningest head coach in their program history. But it's going to be hard to beat them later on if he just continues to stay there and continue to roll. But I'm taking New Smyrna in this football game. They have a quarterback that just transferred there from Boone High School. He's about 6'4", 6'5", 220. You see this kid, you're like, this kid's a Power 5 quarterback. He just looks the part. And I'm telling you, there's a reason why they're 3-0. It's partly because of this quarterback that just transferred there. So I'm going to take the Cudas in this matchup. I like their style of play. I love the RPO offense. I love what they're doing in a schematic standpoint. Horizon is still running that wing T, triple option offense. They're going to try to control the clock. They couldn't beat a Poinciana team, which I don't think is very good. So I'm taking the Cudas in this matchup, and I think they roll over Horizon, Dan.
Yeah, I tell you what, and Horizon has a great running game with Pierre. But you're right. Coach John Wilkinson over at New Smyrna Beach is excited to have a strong passing game this year, and it's going to be exciting to see how that plays out. All right, Lake Mineola, 3-1, travels to Daytona and takes on those Buccaneers. Fan poll has the Bucs at 82%.
This is what I'm excited about. Lake Mineola still reaches out to us. Don't forget about us. They were a preseason favorite for a lot of programs. Their only loss, what was their loss, Dan? I think it was early in the season. Was it Lakeland or I'm not sure. It was a powerhouse, though. I do know they lost. But regardless, this team, if they want to make a statement, they've got to beat Mainland. It's going to be hard to do. Obviously, our fan pool is going with Mainland. I'm also choosing Mainland in this football game, but I will tell you, if Lake Mineola wants to make any type of statement in Central Florida and to say that we're still back, don't forget about us. Coach Banks over there, try to make statements every week. This is the statement game. It's not playing those Lee County teams. It's not playing those cupcakes. It's playing Mainland High School, our #1 team, Dan. This game I'm excited about. I know you are. Throw records out the window, baby. This could be a one to talk about on the show next week, a headliner. But give me the Bucks in this football game. You got to stay with the top team until they get beat.
I absolutely agree with you. And like I said, you were talking about earlier in the show, Mainland's defense is absolutely a brick wall, and it's going to be tough because Lake Mineola has a lot of great speed, a lot of great talent, but I just think that defense is going to be a lot. Number 5, Seminole goes on the road 3-1 and takes on the Indians from Vero Beach 4-0, and Vero Beach is a very good team.
This is exciting. Seminole, the one thing I will give Seminole, they're not scared of nobody. Look at their dang schedule. We talk about hard schedules. Shoot, Seminole, my goodness, I don't think other than probably Evans, right? And that was considered a pretty good team about 3 weeks ago. They got to play them because they're a district team. Guys, Seminole is not afraid of nobody. Vero Beach is not a cupcake. That is not a walk in the park. They're 4-0 for a reason. They're also contenders for a state title every single year. You know, it's interesting, though. When Seminole lost a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, right, they never showed their graphic of, oh, guess what, Baylin was wrong again. They're very famous. Coach Graft over there, the quarterback coach at Seminole, is very famous for showing my face on a wrong prediction. He won't do it when they lose football games, though. It's very interesting. I was wrong because I picked Seminole. I was wrong. They lost, right? Well, I'm picking Vero Beach in this football game. I hope Seminole can use this again as motivation. I hope I see my face on their Twitter pages and everywhere because, you know, this would be a big win for Central Florida. But I do believe Vero Beach is the real deal, and I do believe Seminole is as well. But they're struggling a little bit when I don't know, something about Seminole, I'm not really putting my hand on it. You know, they have all their victories and their 3 wins are dominating, but I want to see this type of matchup, and I want to see them really show themselves in this matchup, and I do believe Vero Beach is the real deal, and I do believe they're going to win this football game, but I do hope I see my face again on all Seminole pages saying that I was wrong in this prediction.
Your face might be on a milk carton by the end of the week, but the Seminole fans have spoken 77%. Let's move on. How about O'Galley, 3-0? And I tell you what, Coach Sands has done a wonderful job with the Commodores, but they're taking on Cocoa, the number 2 team, 3-0. Cocoa's had a bye week. This one is going to be interesting.
Yeah, we see it on our Twitter pages. Some of the coaches have spoken out to our stuff. They've said specifically, we're not backing down. We're not laying down to nobody. We don't care who you are. We're ready to fight. Well, they're playing the Fighting Tigers. And those guys are rolling. And those guys are upset because they should have beat St. Thomas Aquinas, the number 15 team in the entire country we're talking about. Cocoa dominating the football game. Offensively, they're rolling. Look for this to be a mollywop. I'm calling it now. I'm standing behind Cocoa Tigers and the kid that I trained, Brady Hart, who's playing completely lights out right now. Javon Boggs, who arguably is the number 1 receiver in the entire state of Florida. Put respect on his name. This is now we've considered a rivalry matchup only because Ugali is unbeaten. But guess what? These coaches have to back up their talking on Twitter. They're laughing at our rankings. They think it's a joke because they're not up there. Well, you want to be up there, you got to beat teams like Cocoa. Then I believe Cocoa rolls this Friday night against Ugali behind Brady Hart and Javon Boggs, Coach Franco, Coach Snyder. They're going to make a statement in this football game and shut down any type of controversy and any type of whatever you want, shenanigans that, Ugali is showing their face in and their cards are this week.
And 91% of the fans agree with you, Baylin. All right, the game of the week. Number 3, Edgewater at 4-0. Travel to the APK and take on the Blue Darters, number 6.
Dan LaForest, you are excited about this football game, but I'll tell you what, I'm not that excited about this football game, only because the quarterback that I train is probably, most likely, not playing in this football game. So without him playing for this game, and if you don't know who I'm talking about, it's Tyson Davison, the star quarterback, the 2026 quarterback at Apopka High School. He is potentially not playing this game. Without him, Apopka has no chance, 0% chance against Edgewater in this football game, especially after the performance Edgewater just put on Jones last week. But if for whatever reason Tyson feels like he's 100% and he plays in this game, that changes things for me. A little bit. I still think Edgewater's the better team in this matchup, and I think the Eagles win by 2+ touchdowns. I know I said some crazy prediction, 35-7. You can attest to this. I know Tyson can attest to this because I was making jokes about this on the bus at the University of Florida in a game in which they invited Tyson to go to, a game that we both went to support Tyson and the quarterbacks that I train. But I'll tell you what, he is the X factor for Apopka offensively. Defensively, we know they're the real deal. We know it's going to be tough to score against them. Mike Clayton has to perform well. They're going to have to establish the running game, but if they don't, I think the only way to really beat this Apopka team is to throw the ball, and not many teams can do that. So if they're going to have any chance to really open this game up, Mike Clayton's going to have to deliver the ball, and those receivers are going to have to perform at a high level to really open it up. If not, we're going to see a 7 or 10-0 victory for Edgewater, in my opinion. But Apopka has to figure out ways to score if Tyson's not playing. And I'm pretty sure you can agree to this, Dan, but you can never count Apopka because of that defense that they have. And again, I will say it till I'm blue in the face. Apopka's defense is the #1 defense in the entire Central Florida beat in all classifications. But like Andy said earlier, they got to start scoring points. I don't believe they do it against Edgewater.
Well, see, here's the thing. We got to look at the last several years with Apopka Edgewater, okay? And we only have about a minute and a half left. So let's talk about this. It hasn't been offensive drives. It's been offensive plays. It's been one play that determines the winner in this game. And I think it's going to be very, very, very close game, no matter who wins this game. So I agree. I think at Apopka, it's alumni night. There's a big pancake dinner. You and I both are going to be at this game. I think it's going to be an incredible matchup. I think it's going to be that type of game. I think it's going to be physical. I think both teams are going to come out and they have a great deal of respect for them. So I think this is why it's a game of the week. All right, here's our bonus game. Pine Ridge 3-0 travels to Lake Howell 1-2. Why is this our bonus game? Because Pine Ridge is 3-0. They've never been 4-0 in the history of the program. Lake Howell had their first winning season last year for the first time in 20 years. They're 1-2. This is a big storyline. But what makes it even bigger is Eric Pointer, the head coach for Pine Ridge, coached for 5 years at Lake Howell. He was the offensive line and offensive coordinator, Coach Baylin.
Yeah, he was. He coached my cousin, Cohen Kohler. So they had an opportunity at Lake Howell several years ago when my cousin was playing for Coach Pointer and Coach Lowe to actually be the first team to go over 500. They finished 5-5 after starting off 4-1. You know, they had an opportunity to really make a statement in Cohen's junior year. And I like Coach Pointer. He's a phenomenal players coach. I know Cohen loved him. I wish, again, they would have ran the spread offense. I'm not really big on the whole, triple option, veer option, or whatever they had going on over there. But he did, run the spread offense his junior year in the RPO offense, and they did really well, and I was excited about that. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to make a prediction here. I know that the fan polls, we didn't do it for this bonus game. We don't really do it. This is just a fun game to talk about, an extra game, a bonus game for you. This is why they call it that. I love the direction of where Lake Howell started the season. They opened up with a smacking mollywop victory. I believe it was like 60-0. Pine Ridge is going to win this football game. They're going to go to 4-0 for the first time in program history under Coach Pointer. He's going to get his get-back game against Lake Howell, a game he's probably looking forward to, probably a game he's circled on the calendar. And he knew if he came into this matchup 3-0, he had a shot at making history, and I believe they're making history Friday night. So, Dan, I know this is a bonus game. I would love to know your take on this. You're part of Lake Howell that's right in your backyard. This is obviously family to me because my cousin played there, but I am going with Pine Ridge in this football game.
Yeah, and obviously I know these head coaches very well, and it's an exciting program or game for both programs. But it's going to be fun to watch. Baylin, we are almost halfway to the season. When we get done here on Saturday morning, we're literally about 46% done with the season. So it's going to be a lot of great football. But hey, listen, you have a safe weekend. I'll see you Friday night at Apopka. Blue Darters, we're coming. You're watching the Florida High School Scoreboard Show, Central Florida High School Scoreboard Show, and we'll see you next week.